There's a kind of tired that sleep can't fix, a soul-deep exhaustion that lingers beneath the noise, behind the routine. You show up, you perform, you push, but inside, you're running on fumes, restless, heavy, drained from carrying burdens you never talk about. And maybe you've forgotten what peace even feels like. But God hasn't. He still whispers, "Come to me." Not when you figured it out, not when you're stronger, just now, as you are. No mask, no performance, just presence. Rest isn't the absence of activity, it's the presence of God. It's not found in escape, it's found in return. Return to stillness, return to truth, return to the one who isn't impressed by your hustle, but deeply invested in your healing. That kind of rest doesn't require a change of circumstances, just a change of posture. Because sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is slow down, not because you're weak, but because your soul was never meant to survive on adrenaline. It was built for abiding. Stillness isn't just silence, it's surrender. It's the choice to stop reaching, stop proving, stop performing, and simply be. In a world addicted to noise, stillness feels uncomfortable, unnatural, even wasteful. But God often speaks the loudest in the quietest places. When you finally sit down and let the world fall away, something sacred begins. The racing thoughts, the buried emotions, the things you've been avoiding, they rise, not to shame you, but to be healed. Because rest doesn't mean escaping what hurts. It means letting God enter it. He doesn't rush you. He doesn't roll his eyes at your fatigue. He meets you right there, not with demands, but with presence, with a peace that doesn't require an explanation, with a love that doesn't need performance. And when you stay there long enough, your spirit starts to breathe again. This is rest, not a place you visit, but a posture you carry, a confidence that you're held, even when you stop holding everything together, a trust that stillness isn't empty, it's full of Him. When you learn to rest in God, the world loses its grip. You stop measuring your worth by your productivity. You stop trying to outrun your anxiety. You stop needing to have all the answers, because now you're anchored in something deeper than your circumstances. You're anchored in presence. Rest doesn't always look like laying down. Sometimes it looks like letting go of control, of constant motion, of the lie that says you'll only have peace when everything finally makes sense. But God doesn't wait for your life to be peaceful before He offers you peace. He is peace, even in the chaos. And the more you return to Him, the more your rhythm begins to shift. You breathe slower, think clearer, love softer, not because everything around you changed, but because you did. You're no longer fueled by fear. You're led by grace. This kind of rest can't be manufactured. It can't be found in a weekend off or a few deep breaths. It's found in Him alone, in still mornings, in honest prayers, in choosing presence over pressure, again and again. You don't need a perfect setting to rest. You just need a willing heart. Because rest in God isn't about running away from life. It's about running to the one who holds it. It's the courage to say, I don't have to do it all, because I trust the one who already did. And in that trust, the tension breaks, the weight lifts, not always dramatically, but undeniably. You feel your soul sink back into the hands of the one who made it. And suddenly, the noise around you isn't so loud anymore. The chaos inside you starts to still. That's what His presence does. Not just calm, but carry. So let go of the guilt that says you always have to push. Let go of the fear that says slowing down is weakness. There is strength in surrender. There is clarity in quiet. There is healing in stillness, because that's where He meets you most deeply. If this helped you remember the power of resting in God, subscribe and turn on the bell, not to consume more, but to reconnect more often with the presence that restores everything. The world celebrates constant movement. It rewards exhaustion. It praises the ones who never stop, as if rest is laziness and hustle is holiness. But heaven moves differently. In God's kingdom, rest isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Jesus Himself modeled it. In the middle of ministry, in the center of need, He withdrew. He stepped away from the crowds, not to escape, but to reconnect, to be still, to realign. And if the Son of God needed solitude, how much more do we? Stillness is where you hear what busyness drowns out. It's where the Spirit brings things to the surface gently, where burdens you forgot you were carrying get set down, not all at once, sometimes one breath at a time, but it's in that breath where you start remembering. You are not your pace. You are not your output. You are deeply loved, right here, in stillness. You don't need a mountaintop, just a moment, a pause, a whispered, "God, I'm here." And He always answers, not with noise, not with pressure, but with presence. The longer you stay in stillness, the more you realize how loud the world really is, how much pressure you've been carrying without even knowing it. Expectations, deadlines, questions with no answers. But in God's presence, you don't need to fix all of that. You just need to exhale. This is where healing begins, not in more effort, but in more yielding. In letting God take the weight you weren't built to bear. In letting silence become sanctuary. In letting His nearness become enough, even when the outcome still feels uncertain. Rest isn't passive, it's powerful. It's where your strength is refilled and your identity is restored, where striving is replaced by security, where you stop asking, "Am I enough?" and start hearing Him say, "You're already mine." You weren't created to be constantly overwhelmed. You were created to walk in rhythm with the One who gives breath. And when you live from rest instead of running toward it, you bring peace into places that are starving for it, not because life got easier, but because you got anchored. You don't need everything to slow down for you to find rest. You just need to stop letting everything define your peace. Rest isn't what happens when life cooperates. It's what happens when your soul finally trusts. When you believe that God is enough, even here, even now. And that trust shows up in simple ways, in how you breathe, in how you respond when anxiety knocks, in how you stop apologizing for needing space to be still. Because the deeper you go into God's rest, the more you realize, rest is not a pause from your purpose. It's part of it. It renews you, reorients you, reconnects you with the truth that you're not a machine. You're a soul, and souls need presence more than productivity. They need depth more than speed. They need silence, not as an escape, but as a return. You were never meant to carry it all. That was never your job. Your job is to come, to rest, to breathe, and to let Him remind you, you are still held, even when you've stopped holding everything together. One day, you'll look back and realize that the breakthrough didn't come when you pushed harder. It came when you finally stopped, when you let go of trying to control everything and instead leaned into the One who already holds it all. It was in the stillness that your mind quieted enough to hear the truth again, that you are loved, not for your output, but for your existence, that you don't need to do more to be enough, that your value isn't earned, it's inherited. And every time you choose rest over rush, solitude over noise, presence over pressure, you're choosing life. This is the invitation of God, not to run harder, but to come closer, not to fix yourself, but to let him hold what you can't. You don't need to fear stillness anymore. It's not empty. It's full of him, full of grace, full of the kind of strength that doesn't shout, but sustains. So pause, breathe, let go, and remember, rest isn't a luxury in the kingdom of God. It's a holy rhythm, a sacred return to the only place your soul was ever meant to live, with him. And now ask yourself this: if you truly believed his presence was your rest, how differently would you approach your next moment of silence?